there a chance that this might be your last Australian Open?
I don't know.
One day, Novak Djokovic is going to play his last Australian Open, his last ATP tournament, and his last match as a professional player. We all know that day is coming, but we desperately hope it's not this year, or next year, or the year after. Realistically speaking, we've only got a few more major tournaments to watch Novak play tennis and try to win slams before he hangs up the racket. The show that's gone on for more than 2 decades is going to end, but this wasn't supposed to happen.
Disappointed, just from the standpoint of...
Please, guys, don't boo a player when he goes out with injury.
For a while, Novak seemed to be the only tennis player who could defeat Father Time. After his 24th major, we thought he had a few more Grand Slams in him. I personally had him reaching 25 or 26 Grand Slams just based on how his 2023 season played out. However, after seeing his more frequent retirements and withdrawals at the French Open last year and now the Australian Open, I think I have an idea of how much longer Novak is going to play tennis. For so long, Djokovic has defied all the odds and even made the sharpest minds question everything they've known about tennis. And when you pair his performances on the court with the impact off the court, you have a player who truly transcends the sport. But since not everyone is ready to have this conversation, let's stick to the subject of longevity. We can broadly classify players' decline into 3 categories. A steep decline. Following a brilliant couple of seasons, these players' careers fall off a cliff. This might be due to injury or other factors. Players like Ernest Gulbis, Guillermo Coria, Gaston Gaudio, Juan Carlos Ferrero, and a few others come to mind for me. I'm sure you can point to many more examples. A gradual decline. The next group are those who see a gradual decline in performances over a long stretch. These players usually stay in the top 10 and make deep runs at tournaments, but eventually become a shadow of their former selves later on in their careers. David Ferrer is a prime example. He played great into his 30s and literally fought until the wheels fell off. However, the third category is one that we've been seeing a lot more recently, and especially among the GOATs. It's where there's a gradual drop followed by a rapid plunge. For some players, when things start to go downhill, it happens quickly. Think of Federer post-2020 Australian Open, Nadal post-Wimbledon 2022, and Andy Murray post-2017. Although certain parts of their game, like foot speed and movement, begin to slow down, these guys mostly remain consistent. They were still beating top players for fun and winning titles until the vicious cycle of injury, surgery, recovery began to kick in. And although they never lost their ability to play tennis, their bodies had been punished so much that they sort of reached an elastic limit and just stopped cooperating with the players themselves. Novak seems to be taking the same path. Comparing his 2023 season and 2024 season tells you everything you need to know. Although Djokovic still beat Alcaraz to the Olympic gold medal, he underperformed in almost every other tournament throughout the year. And when he did try to push himself at times, his body didn't let him. He also tried to push himself against Sasha, but his body needed the rest.
It is what it is, you know, injury is the biggest enemy of a professional athlete, and but yeah, it wasn't to be this time, and that's okay, you know.
As Novak said, injuries are the biggest enemy of a professional athlete. For so long, he has defied the odds, beating players with a busted knee, serving aces with a torn abdominal muscle, hitting winners with a hamstring tear, and most recently, beating Alcaraz while maxing out on painkillers for another muscle tear that forced him to retire in the semifinal against Zverev. There's only so much the body can take.
It's a muscle tear, you know. 2 years ago, I have managed it better. On the court, it didn't bother me as much. This time, that wasn't the case.
But how long will Novak continue to play tennis for? I'll tell you, but first, smash that subscribe button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our newsletter, the Courtside Digest, where we bring you the most valuable insights from around the tennis world each week. I'll leave the link in the description for you down below. Djokovic has said that he'll keep playing as long as he can compete for the major titles.
I want to keep going. If I'm fit, healthy, motivated, I don't see a reason why I wouldn't come, you know.
Is he going to keep playing until the wheels fall off? Not exactly. Judging from his recent interviews, we can conclude that as long as Djokovic is healthy and motivated, he's going to keep playing. And with the experience and tennis IQ and the quality he has, Novak will continue to beat most of the top 10 players. Just one thing though. In 99.9% of cases, competitive tennis is usually just not an option at the age of 40. In singles, I should say. Federer pushed the limits and reached the quarterfinals of Wimbledon a few weeks shy of his 40th birthday to become the oldest Wimbledon quarterfinalist in the Open era. That's uncharted territory, but let's assume Djokovic plays until his 40th, and that would take us to 2027, meaning that after this season, we have 2 more seasons to see the GOAT in action, even if it's on a limited schedule. These are the oldest title winners on the ATP Tour. Gael Monfils just became the oldest player to win an ATP Tour singles title since the tour was formed in 1990. Novak also won the 2024 Olympic gold medal at 37 years and 2 months, which puts him somewhere on the list. We all know Djokovic is capable of winning titles, so I expect him to seize many more of the oldest ever records towards the end of the 2025 season or in 2026, as long as he's healthy. Let's also remember that Novak is the oldest world #1 and also the oldest year-end #1, so he already has the most important oldest ever records, but for how long can he push himself? This graph shows the density of the ages of Grand Slam champions on the ATP Tour. Looking at the graph, you'll notice that over the course of decades, the most likely age a player is going to win a slam is between 21 and 31 years old. But that's common sense. After all, you're at your peak in terms of cardiovascular health, lung capacity, muscle mass, bone density, and many other areas. According to data from 3 different metrics, players hit their physical and performance peaks between 25 and 26 years old. In the 80s and 90s, the number was skewed a little bit to the left, but now it's not uncommon to see players hit their incredible heights a bit later or even way earlier, like Carlos Alcaraz. The last 2 decades have been heavily dominated by the big 3. Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. So the graph literally follows their aging journeys and is obviously a bit skewed. But the point is that almost in every way, Novak is past his physical and performance prime, which was roughly between 2011 and 2016. Now, here we are almost a decade later, wondering if Novak can win 1 more slam like it's a normal thing at his age. The truth is, if history tells us anything, it's that even the greatest are closer to the end of the road than they may think. At this point, Novak's slam hopes and retirement will depend on this season's results, which brings us to his Australian Open run. Novak played 2 guys who he had barely watched coming into the tournament. Nishesh Basavaredi in the first round and Jaime Faria in the second round. Both qualifiers entered Melbourne several spots outside the top 100. 107th-ranked Basavaredi is an obvious next-gen talent, and in some ways he reminds me of Novak. When he played Djokovic in round 1, the 19-year-old seemed unfazed about the occasion initially and was hitting incredible winners like this.
Oh, yes, sir.
It was short-lived though, as Djokovic found his groove and won in 4 sets. In the second round, here was another surprise package. 125th-ranked Portuguese player Jaime Faria had just gotten his first tour-level win, beating Pavel Kotov in the first round. And while the gap in experience looked so profound in the first set, Faria stormed his way back into the contest, taking the second set with some fine displays of ball striking and athleticism. As expected, Djokovic rebounded to win in 4 sets. Playing qualifiers and wildcards can be tricky sometimes because of the surprise factor, and you might need some time to figure them out. But while it's always good to find your groove and have a run around in the early rounds if you're Novak, you also don't want to be stretching yourself too far and be playing too many sets. So it really comes down to finding that delicate balance. As Djokovic continues to age, he'll need to perfect the act of maintaining this balance. We aren't talking about 3-set matches because Novak doesn't care about most of them, which is why he's way more likely to be upset in tournaments outside of the Grand Slams. These tournaments are less forgiving when it comes to finding rhythm. Remember those losses to Luca Nardi, Tabilo, Machac, and Opelka earlier this year? Fast forward to the next rounds, and Djokovic predictably made a statement of intent in the 3rd and 4th rounds, and even I was surprised to see that he won both matches in straight sets. It took Novak only 142 minutes to get past the 26th seed Tomas Machac in the 3rd round. Many of the rallies were long and brutal, and Novak had to rely on his serve to get as many free points as possible. Not only did Djokovic win 80% of his first serves, but he also rolled back the years on his return game, turning defense into offense in a split second. Novak won twice the number of points on the return, 20 to Mahach's 10. In the fourth round match, Djokovic overwhelmed Lehečka from the baseline and was moving extremely well for a 37-year-old. The aim was clear: to shorten points and make his service games as quick as possible with pinpoint serving and aggressive +1s, and then prolong the points on the return by getting more balls back in play to give himself a chance on Lehečka's service games. Novak held to love or 15 in 4 out of his 5 service games in the first set, 3 times in the second set, and 3 times in the third set, making it a total of 10 games where he held serve to love or 15. On top of that, Novak's exceptional movement against the Czech was further amplified by his anticipation in both matches, and he was able to not only outmuscle, but also draw out a lot of errors from both Czech players. Seeing how quickly Djokovic revved up the aggression engine against 2 extremely solid top 30 players, defying time, physics, and probably your expectations, was absolutely mind-blowing because in the early to mid stages of his career, Djokovic was doing more of wearing down opponents than trying to hit through them. As tennis players age, though, they have to become the most aggressive version of themselves in order to make up for that lack of movement, stamina, and endurance. It was a similar story in the quarterfinal when he faced Alcaraz. Novak won that match, and I actually talked about the dynamics a bit in my last recap. Check it out if you haven't seen it already. After getting injured towards the end of the first set, Djokovic decided to go for broke and be more aggressive after that. But I came to the conclusion that there's only one outcome when Djokovic faces Alcaraz. That outcome is often collateral damage. We saw what happened after both players went for each other's throats at the Olympics and ended up with early exits at the 2024 US Open. We saw it again at the Australian Open, with both players struggling physically, and Novak having to retire in the semis against Zverev. Novak and Carlos always push themselves to the limit when they face each other, and it goes without saying that Djokovic can no longer afford to be in any position outside of the top 4. Why, you may ask? The answer is simple. To win slams these days, it's almost guaranteed that you'll have to go through Alcaraz, Sinner, and Zverev. If you're lucky, you only get to face one of them, but if you run out of luck like Novak this year, you might have to face all 3 of them, which is likely going to be too much. I should mention that these are the very best players in the world, so they'll push you to your limits. That was Sasha's plan in the semis, to make the rallies long and tiring for Novak, who began to slice more and bail out of rallies more frequently. It's wishful thinking to assume that Djokovic can just keep going toe-to-toe with these guys forever. Even if he did beat Zverev in the semis, the win would have most likely come after more than 3.5 hours at least. Would Djokovic have had enough left in the tank in the final against Sinner? Now you get the point. Being in the top 4 guarantees that you don't get to face any of these players until at least the semis. And if you get lucky and the draw opens up, you could have a pretty smooth path to the final. But how can Djokovic maintain a top 4 spot when he's barely playing ATP tournaments at this point? It's a bit of a head scratcher, but seeing that he is committed to playing more tournaments this year, it might just be a possibility that he seizes that 4th spot from Taylor Fritz. Despite being less than 70% of the player he once was, a 37-year-old Novak can beat almost every other player on the tour without necessarily leaving second gear, except for maybe the current top 3 players in the world: Sinner, Zverev, and Alcaraz. At this stage in Novak's career, his fitness might fall off a cliff at any moment, and there's always the possibility that he's only a bad injury away from retirement. Novak has put so much effort into maintaining his body, which is why it really sucked to see that he had to go out of his way to post an MRI of his hamstring tear online just because people were doubting him. For so long, Djokovic was able to beat the crap out of top players despite nursing injuries, which is something that in retrospect became the new normal for some of Novak's title runs. Essentially, everyone got so used to Novak's superhuman powers that when he eventually entered a raging war with Father Time, people no longer believed he could be human. You may dislike Novak or even prefer someone else to him, but accusing him of faking injuries and booing him when he retired against Zverev was a new low, and it wasn't supposed to happen. At the beginning of this video, I said that I knew how much longer Novak was going to keep playing on tour. Well, maybe I lied. The truth is that theoretically, Novak can keep playing as long as he wants at a high level. I just think he'll keep going as long as his body holds up physically, which is probably about 1 or 2 more seasons, in my opinion. We don't need to microanalyze too many statistics to see that the Serbian is already in decline. The signs are unmistakable. Injuries are more frequent and recovery takes longer than usual. Last year was the second time in 14 years that Djokovic failed to win a major. The other year being 2017, when he was dealing with that nagging elbow injury for which he eventually needed surgery. Hardly any player in recent history except for Federer has pushed for slams at this age. Novak has about 7 to 8 more slams to compete for from an optimistic standpoint, and he'll be needing his fitness, an ultra-aggressive brand of tennis, and some favorable draws to get over the line. But that said, a time will come when the slams won't even matter anymore. The titles won't matter as much. All you'll want to see is your idol pick up the racket for one last time, and quite possibly, even those who weren't exactly his biggest fans will salute greatness. But if there's any athlete who can defy the laws of physiology, stick it to Father Time, and make all of your predictions look stupid all at the same time, it's Novak Djokovic. But what do you think? How long do you think the Joker will keep playing on tour, and how do you like his chances for a 25th major? Guys, I almost forgot to mention, I'm working on a project building out the website for Courtside Tennis, and I'll admit it, I'm not great as a web designer or developer. I'm working in Framer, and if you happen to be a designer or developer yourself who's also familiar with Framer, hit me up at the link below or in the comments.